Welcome to the Shields on Hoops podcast. We are an episode, I keep losing count, 10, I guess. We got the Colgate preview today. I'm here with Nick Peckham. Please like, subscribe, share, do what you do on YouTube, Spotify, everywhere else you find podcasts. We always come to you, or try to come to you anyway, every pregame and post-game for the Orange. All right, so we're going to talk about Colgate today. You know, we don't need to talk about probably too much about history because we all kind of know what that history is. We've all kind of lived it the last 2 years, and it's been rather unenjoyable. I think I can say that. Speak on behalf of most every Syracuse fan that they having to say the words that we've lost to Colgate twice in a row is brutal. A lot of that had to do with some guys who are there and who are no longer there, because it's kind of a new look Colgate, which we'll talk about a little bit later. We'll take a look at Colgate. We'll take a look at their numbers. They've only played one game so far. We'll take a look at I watched a little bit of film. We'll talk about how they play and what to expect from them, and then we'll kind of talk predictions and all the other jazz we usually hit on the pod. So, like usual, Nick, what are your kind of initial opening thoughts on either Colgate or Syracuse's new re-edition, cleared to play this one? So what are your kind of opening thoughts?
The first thing I'll start off with is, yes, like you said, Benny Williams is reinstated and back with the basketball team. I know we talked about it in our post-game show that we did against Canisius, that he got posted in a picture on Instagram by William Patterson that he was in the gym working out with them after the game. So when you put two and two together, it kind of seemed like it was coming down that road for sure. But he is official. I think Saturday they announced it. He is officially back with the basketball team. Huge, absolutely huge news for Syracuse. We'll get into that and lineups in a little bit later in the show. But on to Colgate. Obviously, like you said, the last 2 years they came into the Dome, and if memory serves me right, I think they hit at least 13 or 14 threes in both games.
I think they hit 18 last year.
Last year they hit 18. I think the game before that it was like 14 or 15, something crazy like that. So they definitely came in, they shot the lights out of the ball. And clearly the zone didn't do too much. And neither of those games were really close. We ended up losing both by, I want to say, 13 or more. So it's not like
so 2 years ago the score was 100-85.
Okay.
And a year ago, the score was 80-68.
And was it the 2 years ago they hit 18 threes, or was that last year?
I think it was last. I'm looking right now.
Last
year they were 19 for 39 from three. The year before they were that's crazy. 19 for 39. The year before, they were 18 for 43. So they hit 37 threes in 2 years.
Yeah, so there you go. They came into the Dome. They hit 18 and 19 threes, respectively, in both games. That's just absolutely crazy. Clearly, the defense that we had at the time, the 2-3 zone, wasn't working. But we stuck with it, and we hoped for better results, and it didn't happen in those two games, unfortunately. But this is a different year. There's a new head coach. There's a new defensive philosophy that we've seen in the first two games and then the two exhibition games that we played as well. So, and like Brandon said earlier, this is kind of a different Colgate team than what we've seen in the past. Obviously, some of those guys who hit those threes and things like that, Tucker Richardson being one of those guys that were there for both games, he's no longer at Colgate. But obviously, Colgate's only played one game this season. They beat Brown 72-70. They shot 6 of 18 from three, so they only shot 18 threes in that game as opposed to making 18 and 19 against Syracuse the last 2 years. And they do start two bigs. They play a kind of a different style than they have in the past for sure. Losing so much talent in that team, they kind of had to play to their strengths. So it'll definitely be an interesting task for Syracuse. It's definitely an uptick in competition that we've seen so far. So it should be a really good game. Hopefully Syracuse avenges those last 2 years. There's not many guys on this team really that you can sit here and say, I don't think any of these guys on this team, Benny Williams was here 2 years ago. But that, I think when you really think about it, the guys that actually play, I think that's it.
I think you're right. Yeah. So in that game, in the game 2 years ago, Buddy played 40 minutes. Jimmy played 35 minutes. Gerard had 34 minutes, and he scored 27. Jesse was in that one. Swider, Benny, Simir, and Frank was on that. Anselm was on that team too. So
Yeah, so Benny's the only one who's been here for both. And obviously, last year's game you had a bunch of the freshmen here. I don't know. I know Brandon has minutes in front of him. Obviously, Judah played a whole bunch. He was the starting point guard at the time. I don't know who else would have played much minutes, especially that early in the season. Maybe Justin Taylor and obviously Chris Bell because he started the beginning of that season. But
yeah, let me so real quick. So Benny played 38 minutes in that one last year, and he had 17. Judah played 37 minutes in that 20. Chris Bell got 8 minutes. Samir got 24. Cope got 12. JT got 6. Hema got 6, and Malik Brown got 2. The rest of those minutes obviously went to Jesse and Joe.
Yeah, so I mean, when you really look at it, outside, like we said, outside of Judah and Benny, Chris Bell got 8, Justin got 6. I mean, Copeland had 12. Copeland was the one that got the most out of that group. So a lot of these guys were around for that. So they'll definitely want to avenge that loss. But like I said, it'll definitely be a different Colgate team. They seem to, they scored 72 points in that game, and they only hit 6 threes. So obviously Colgate's a team that they play in the Ivy League. A lot of Ivy League schools play the same way. They move the ball, they
Patriot.
cut, pass. Patriot League. Yeah. I apologize for that.
That's the other one.
But they all play the same type of basketball, right? Like
Patriot. Nobody wants to play those guys ever.
Pass, cut,
they don't
move without the ball. It's a lot of 5-out offense where they just and they're all on the same page. So. Like I said, it'll definitely be an uptick in competition. We should see the best from Syracuse that we've seen all year, hopefully, in a game like this. And it'll definitely be interesting to see what conspires from this game.
Yeah, and I would say a couple of things interest me as well. So, Coach Autry had a good – had 6 days, 6 days to prep for this one. Okay. We'll see what the coaching staff does, and we'll see if they make any tweaks to what they've been doing. Colgate, again, also had plenty of time to prep for Syracuse, and they're not prepping for the zone. I feel like Colgate kind of had the blueprint for the zone that everybody else followed the rest of the year, if you had any shooters at all. So it'll be different for them. It'll be different for us for sure. Also, side note, Canisius had a nice win against St. Bonaventure a couple of days ago as well. St. Bonnie's, they're a top 100 Ken Palm team. That's a big win for Canisius. I don't think they had the big that was out as well. That was also out for the game against Syracuse. So that's a good win for them. Also, down the road, potentially a good thing for Syracuse as well. All right, so Colgate. All right, a couple of things. Again, they've only played one game this year. They beat 206 Ken Palm Brown 72-70. And again, I realize it's too early to really care about Ken Palm, but it is a good gauge at where people think other teams are. You'll recognize some names, right? Braden Smith is back. He's the point guard. He's the Kei Clark looking kind of guy. Plays kind of the same. That's what I think when I see him play. He's a good player, man. I like his game a lot. He's out of Seattle. I think he was one of the top. I think he was top 5 last year for freshmen in assists. And the ball's going to be in his hands a lot. Keegan Records is back. I think it's Records. It's not Record. I think it's Records. He's back. Either way, he kind of tested the transfer waters for a little while. He's 6'10". He's a banger, can also shoot it. He came back. Ryan Moffitt is back, which is another name you should probably recognize. He can stroke it from 3. And then I think it's Jeff Woodward. He's the other hoss inside. So they're going to start 6'10" and 6'11" inside. Kind of slower, not like physical, explosive guys, but they're very methodical. They'll post you up, they'll dribble you into a post up. And then, like I said, Records can also shoot it. Is it Records or Records?
I don't remember, truthfully.
Either way, he's a player. He's the preseason player of the year in the Patriot League. And yeah, he's a 5th-year guy coming back on a team that has won 3 straight conference titles. Colgate was picked to win the Patriot again. I'm gonna call him Keegan the rest of the way. I don't want to disrespect the guy. Now it's in my head if I got the pronunciation wrong or right. But he shot 67.5% from the floor last year. 13.6 rebounds. Moffitt, one of the best 3-point shooters in the country. I think he was north of 44% from three. He was a first team preseason selection too. Like I said, Smith, 4.4 assists last year. Yeah, 11.6 points, 4.4 assists, 3.9 rebounds at 6 foot. He's probably actually 5'10". They have shooters on the floor, right? But they are definitely kind of more inside out. And not just inside out with feeding the post, but also with Smith and how he drives it. They kind of play inside out that way. And yeah, they run good stuff. You'll see it. I clipped a video together of a couple of things they ran. I'm going to share out as well with the pod and the post and all that jazz too. So we don't know too much again about them this year, data wise. Played one game, but something that stood out to me, and we'll talk personnel in a little bit more, but Nicholas Louis Jock. All right, he is a junior, had 15 points. Really kind of a guy who can go and get his own shot. I think he looks super improved from last year. Again, he's one of those guys who probably played behind Richardson. So you got some good pieces on this team. I can't imagine a team in the Patriot League being better than them. I don't know if they're as good as last year, but they're good I think they're going to be good in a different way. And again, I won't speculate too much in the Patriot League, but they just got some pieces that are going to be challenging. They just look like a team that would be a problem in March for somebody else, like they always do. So that's kind of my first vibe on them. They started records, Moffitt, Jock, Smith, and I believe
Woodward.
Woodward. Yeah, you're right. He only played 18 minutes, but he started. Cummins comes off the bench. He's a good driver. Thompson's kind of a physical guy. And Chandler Baker is kind of a role player. So they got good pieces. They fit together well. Their coach is a good one. I'm surprised he's still there. I know people have been trying to poach him for a while. A lot of people at Syracuse wanted him for a little bit. So I think that he's doing a great job. And last thing I'll say, and let Nicolette you talk about their players a little bit and what you remember about them. Colgate has a winning culture. Okay, they win. Right, they've been to the NCAA tournament the last 3 years. The expectation at Colgate is to win, and now the expectation at Colgate is to beat Syracuse. Right, like that's
you've done it twice in a row.
You've done it twice in a row. This is what we do. We go into the dome. We take care of business. This is our big win, and blah blah blah. It's kind of how they've rolled and operated the last couple of years. So they are not going to come into this thing with any bright eyes. They're not going to be scared. They don't care that we picked up JJ Starling. They don't care that we have Naheem McClain. Like they're not worried about all that, right? They're going to do what they do, okay, which is play the way they play really well. And you're going to see a lot of ball movement. You're going to see a lot of screening action. You're going to see a lot of handoffs and pick and rolls and opportunistic running. And they're going to play inside out, like I said earlier. So I really think that it's a really interesting matchup for Syracuse. It's total opposite of what they've seen so far. Like New Hampshire, I guess, a little bit physical, but Canisius was just kind of very free flowing, and Colgate free flows, but they just really run through those bigs. And a lot of teams kind of go like high ball screen at the end of the shot clock. They just throw it inside and let their bigs kind of pound, and they crash, and then that's how they kind of attack at the end of the shot clock. So. I don't know what you remember about their personnel from last year. And like I said, I've seen them a little bit more this year than you have. But that's kind of my take on these guys coming into this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the box score right now from last season. And obviously Colgate outscored Syracuse in the first half 44-30. Syracuse outscored them 38-36 in the second half. But, I mean, going into halftime down 14 against Colgate, you're just giving them more motivation to come out and close this game out really at the end of the day. But just some numbers from last year of guys who are back. I mean, obviously we talked Tucker Richardson, who's gone now, but he was 8 of 13 from 3 last year. 30 points, 10 of 16 from the field. So he was on fire, obviously, when you talk about it at the end of the day. But some guys that are playing again this year for them, Ryan Moffitt, He last year against Syracuse, he had 15 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 of 7 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3. So he had a good game. Keegan records.
I'm looking it up. It's bothering me. Go ahead.
6 points, 8 rebounds. And then like Braden Smith had 5 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists. He struggled shooting. He was 2 of 8 from the field and 1 of 6 from 3. Jeff Woodward, 0 of 2, didn't score, but had 8 assists and 6 rebounds as well. So between
playing through the post.
Between the two of them, it was 16 assists and 12 rebounds and 5 points between the two of them. And then who else? Sam Thompson, I think we mentioned. He had 6 points and 1 rebound. And then Nicholas had he 1 shot. He missed it, but he had an assist. But, I mean, they had 38 assists 24 assists as a team, 38 rebounds. They only shot 7 free throws for the whole game. They were 5 of 7 from the free throw line, but they were 19 of 39 from three-point line. So, I mean, you shoot 48.7% on 39 threes. Most of the time, you're probably going to lose basketball games, unfortunately. But just some quick stats that I noticed. Second chance points, they had 15. So when you shoot 19 of 39 from 3 and still get 15 second chance points, that's pretty good.
Guards not rebounding.
They had 16 points off of turnovers, and then 14 points in the paint. Obviously, they shot from 3 a lot. 24 bench points. And then just like if you look at Syracuse, Syracuse had 16 points off of turnovers, so they were tied with that. Syracuse had 17 second chance points, so they had 2 more than Colgate did. Syracuse had 7 bench points, but obviously we talked about the bench minutes, so really wasn't many. But Syracuse shot 8 of 25 from 3, 32%. They shot 38% for the game and 12 of 15 from the free throw line. Obviously, you mentioned Judah, Benny are really the only 2 that got significant minutes in that game that are back. Quadir, if you count the 12. But it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, Benny had 17 and 8. Judah had 24 rebounds and 20 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. So those 2 guys had 37 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 assists combined. So if you could get that, obviously, again from the 2 of them, it would be huge moving forward. But kind of like you said, they kind of play inside out more this year. They start a guy that's 6'10 and 6'11. So it makes sense to feed the post and play inside out when you don't have the shooters you had last year. I'll jump into our next segment as I say this. But one key guy I think that's going to be around for Syracuse tomorrow night is Naheem McLeod and how he plays in the paint. Are they going to be able to put him on these guys if they're going to kind of drift him out to the 3-point line and things like that? So that'll be one interesting fact that we'll discuss probably in the next segment.
Yeah, I mean, we can just go there now. I definitely think that. So Woodward is not. That's McLeod will be matched up with Woodward. He's not. They're not putting him on records, which it is records, by the way. I looked it up. So they will definitely try and drag Naheem out because what Woodward does do, he does set ball screens, he does run handoffs. He's not like a dribble penetrator, but he's not afraid to put it on the ground either. So I don't think he can necessarily get by McLeod, but he is going to be out there running handoffs and pitches and flipping and doing like he's going to be out there. So that'll be interesting to see how he does. Because again, like you can't. If you're Naheem, if you're Naheem and you can't just sink and not go out there because the guys he's handing off to are going to be Braden Smith, Ryan Moffitt, who the shooters they do have. So you're just sinking down low, like
you can't play drop coverage really.
It's not going to work. So, and especially when Records is out there. So, all right, let's talk about some before we dive into that. All right, so Benny's back. All right.
Here, I got the question for you. This one.
All right, hit me with it. Go.
Benny's back. Benny has not played since the first exhibition game. Obviously, he's been suspended for the last 3. Obviously not off topic, but nobody really knows what happened per se. But he is reinstated now. He is back. So my question for you is, do they put him in the starting lineup, or do they keep the same 5 that they started with the last 3 games and kind of work Benny back into it?
He got what, 3 practices?
If he got reinstated, Saturday or Friday night, Saturday morning-ish,
kind of. It was Friday.
Friday. So let's say we'll say he practiced Saturday, Sunday,
2 or 3,
maybe tonight.
I think he starts then. I think he starts.
Okay.
I think he starts. I think it makes sense also matchup wise for him to start.
With size, yeah. See, that's the big thing, right? Is they start 2 guys that are 6'10".
Because Benny's going to have records. And here's the thing. Okay. Here's the thing, right? There's 2 questions to this. So one is, does Benny start? And the second, I think yes. So if he does, who sits, right? But let's start with Benny though. So with Benny, like if Benny is starting, okay, he's going to have. So Naheem will have Woodward. Benny will have records, okay, and if Benny doesn't start, who's guarding records? It ain't Chris Bell, and it ain't Justin Taylor, and maybe Malik, but we don't even know if Malik's 100%. So I just think that unless Autry wants to send another message and is like, hey, what I don't know what happened. Somehow they kept that completely locked up. But like, I know there are rumors, but pretty locked up.
You take that with a grain of salt at this point, right? You never really know what happened.
It doesn't matter. He's back. He served his time. He did what he needed to do. Coaches thought he's good to come back. He's back. So that's why I think he does start also, because I think it's the best fit for this matchup. Do you think he starts?
Before I answer that, I will say one thing. Everybody who looks at this suspension, right? Obviously, like we said, it was behind closed doors. They kept it in-house. Perfectly fine with all that. But I will say one thing. Whoever talks about it and what this and whatnot, just know that this suspension may have been longer than any normal suspension for the same thing, because I think Adrian Autry is trying to put his not his foot down, but this is now Adrian Autry's team. So this is how it's going to be. You play by my rules or you don't play at all. And I'm perfectly okay with that. What you did, if it warranted a suspension, then obviously you did something that was over the top. So Benny missed 3 games. At the end of the day, did he hurt a team that's heading to Maui most likely this weekend? Probably. I mean, now you only get 1 game, really. I mean, because if you think about it, the first game he played, Judah didn't play. So they haven't seen their normal starting 5 on the court together at all. This will be the first time tomorrow night. So back to your question. I do think Benny starts, obviously, with the size. If you go with the same starting 5, do you trust Chris Bell or Justin Taylor to guard a guy who's 6'10" that can post you up and shoot threes? That's the question at the end of the day. If you're okay with that and you trust that, then maybe Benny comes off the bench and you just stick with the same 5 that you've played with the last 3 games.
Or you start Malik.
But like you said, we don't even know if Malik's 100% yet.
I don't think that's you. And I don't like that matchup. I don't like like if Records was the 5-man, that'd be one thing. But since he plays 4, I don't like that matchup for Malik. I like it offensively. I don't like it defensively.
But I will answer one of the other questions you asked earlier, and then I have another one for you. But you asked, if Benny starts, who sits? And right now, if you ask me to right now, I think Justin Taylor starts over Chris Bell, because I think Justin Taylor has earned the starting role the last couple of games over Chris Bell, and that could change. Like we said, I think it's going to come down to who has the hot hand each game that gets the most minutes out of the 2 of them. That could definitely change. But as of right now, I think Justin Taylor starts, only because he's a little bit better defensively than Chris Bell is, and they are going to need that against these 3-point shooters. And like you said, they have a lot of guys who love to attack. So it gives you flexibility where you can put Justin Taylor on a guard and kind of move Judah off of Braden Smith if you wanted to go that way. So I do think Justin Taylor would start over Chris Bell. And then my question for you is, obviously they start two bigs, and one of them is more of a kind of a back to the basket type of guy. So if Naheem got into foul trouble in this game, do you think we see a big, as in Peter Carey or Hema, or do you think they go Malik Brown at the 5?
I think they're going to have to go Carey. I'm assuming it's not going to be Hema just because he hasn't played at all. I think Peter Carey might get 5-6 minutes to play. And again, like you said, if Naheem gets in foul trouble early, that might be different. But yeah, I don't see a situation where I think one of those guys off the bench will play. I don't like Malik at 5 in this. I don't like Malik at 5, period, usually. I really don't like it.
We discussed that too.
Multiple reasons, right? And it's nothing he's doing wrong. I just think it fits the team best when he is at the 4, and he can clean up and he can roam a little bit more, and it just makes more sense to me. But back to, I think also that I think you'd be insane not to start Taylor just because of how productive he's been the first 2 games. I think he's earned that spot. I don't think it's that Chris Bell has necessarily done anything wrong. It's just that Taylor's played so exceptionally and so efficiently that you start him. I think they probably play about the same amount of minutes probably tomorrow night based on, if somebody gets hot, obviously. But I think if all things are equal, I think now we start to see them be the same like position or player, right? Like you put their stats together. Right?
Yeah, like what do you get from the two of them? If you can get
that spot,
we'll say 15 points, close to 10 rebounds, and a couple assists from the two of them combined. That's a win on most nights because obviously they're hitting shots.
You want 3 or 4 threes at least from the two of them every night if you want to like beat decent teams, especially if Judah and JJ don't shoot super well from 3. So yeah.
And I will say one thing. Like you said, this is no knock on what Chris Bell has done. I think Chris Bell has played a lot better at the beginning of the season than he did at points last season. But I just think Justin Taylor has played better in the first 2 games of this season than Chris Bell has. Then if Justin Taylor starts and you bring Chris Bell off the bench, maybe Chris Bell can be more aggressive with the second unit and look for his shot more. And because there's times where you've seen him in these games where he'll be open and he'll hesitate a little bit and then kick it back out and things like that. So maybe it'll kind of light a fire underneath him to where he is more aggressive and he can find his shot. Because like you said, they're going to need the two of them to hit shots at a consistent basis for this team to reach the potential of what they possibly could be.
Yeah, I saw somebody say something about Bell the other day about how he just kind of doesn't like he'll like just vanish on the floor at times. I don't know if I agree with that. Like if you're on the floor with guards like Judah Mintz and JJ Starling who dominate the ball so much, like what do you want, or even Taylor, like what do you want Taylor and Bell to do? Like go take it from Judah Mintz?
Exactly. It's tough.
Go get yours. Like what do you want? They're like, oh yeah, they just stand on the wing of the corner. Yeah, because there's that. Yeah, you're right. Because
but I will also say, to your point, not having Benny in this lineup, who is also could be another creator, I think takes a little bit away from Bell, because I think again, Bell becoming I won't put options because they're college players obviously, but Bell becoming that 4th guy in the starting lineup, as opposed to him being that 2nd or 3rd or number 1 shooter on the radar for teams. Having a guy like Benny Williams who can post up, also hit threes, also attack the rim, it can open up things for he may kick to a guard like JJ or Judah, and they could kick one more pass, and now Chris Bell has an even better shot than he normally would. So I think having Benny come back is a huge thing for not just Chris Bell, not just the guards, but everybody on this team.
And I think the biggest thing that I'm pleased about having Benny back is rebounding. Syracuse just hasn't been very good on the defensive glass. They've given up way too many second chances, and having him down there to clean up a little bit, I think is going to be the biggest. I think they miss his playmaking. I think they miss his offensive, ability to score from different positions on the floor. But I think his rebounding is the thing it's going to be the biggest impact.
I will say. My biggest thing that I think Syracuse is going to be happy that Benny's on the floor for is And I know a lot of people might call me crazy for saying this, but I think his leadership attributes, where he is kind of like that alpha male on this team. He's a junior. He's been through this program. This is now his third year. Obviously, he's had some ups and downs in this program. His first year, he kind of was that Jim Boeheim in the Jim Boeheim doghouse. His second year didn't go as planned. He kind of stepped away from the team for a little bit. And then this year, starting off, you get suspended for an exhibition game in the first 2 games of the regular season. So hopefully that little suspension really lit a fire under Benny. But I think being that alpha male and that leadership is what Syracuse is really going to feed into from Benny.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it gives him a little bit of edge, a little bit of a quiet edge. All right, so I always do like a three things of good news for Syracuse, 3 things of bad news potentially. I listed for good news, Tucker Richardson's gone. All right, that's very good news. Okay, he's a program guy for them. He was player of the year and defensive player of the year in the Patriot League. Second one I said was that Colgate won't be able to rip apart the zone, right? Like they'll have to do something different. And then my third one was Benny Williams is back. So those things all kind of flowed. My bad news, things I'm worried about. We talked about how, Colgate will have no fear. We also talked about how they got some physical interior pieces that could cause problems. They got some guys who they're big, right? So you add some bigs with some free flowing offense and a couple guards, things can happen. And the last thing I said was they'll run the best offense we've seen this season so far. And they'll run. And what I mean by that is just like the ball moving, different sets. They do a good job with what they do. Like I said, it's a program kind of thing with these guys. It's not like a new team every year. Colgate's a program, right? They kind of run their stuff and make you pay for being aggressive, and they're just the basketball IQ is high, and they know how to play the game, and they know how to do what Coach Langle wants them to do, and they do it. They do it every year. It's just part of their DNA and identity. So that worries me a little bit because this man-to-man has not been ideal at times. Like if Syracuse can't turn Colgate over.
So before you get into that, let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. If you're Syracuse, what kind of game do you want to play? Do you want to up and down, fast pace, or do you want to try to slow it down and play more half court?
I think with your guard depth, I think having the edge in guard depth that Syracuse has, because I like Colgate's guards, but their guard, and they have a decent guard off the bench, but their main guys they run their stuff through, like there's not a lot coming off the bench. And also with Records and Woodward, like getting those guys back and forth as much as possible is, I think it's very important. I think they got to get as many possessions as they possibly can. I think that's a great strategy. I'd like to see Syracuse just not even trapping, but just like pick up full court and man.
Just kind of like, and listen, I coach basketball, right? And I press at the level that I coach 14 and 15-year-olds, but I tell them the same thing, right? The press isn't always about turning the ball over and things like that. It's just making them make extra passes. The more passes you make teams make, the better chance you have for a mistake or something like that. Like, it's not about, like, I know people will watch Syracuse and they'll press and they'll be like, they look back at, we'll say the last, 5 to 8 years, whenever Syracuse would be down and Jim Boeheim would randomly pull out the press in the second half and they'd go on some crazy run to get back in games. It's not what you need from the press for 40 minutes, right? It's slow the game down, or even speed them up in cases and just kind of force them into situations that a lot of these guys aren't accustomed to. You want guys who aren't accustomed to dribbling the ball like that to dribble the ball like that against your playmakers and your athletic guys and things like that. So I definitely agree with you. I think one thing that I think Syracuse should definitely take advantage of, I know I talked about this on it was either the New Hampshire post-game pod we did or the Canisius pregame one we did. But you said they start 2 big guys and things like that. And if you look at their box score from the first game, they really didn't play many guys off the bench. They had 3 guys off the bench that played more than 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So obviously with JJ, Judah, Benny being back, Kyle, Justin, Chris Bell, how they've shown they can all attack this season. Put your head down and get to the rim. let's see if we can get some of their guys in foul trouble, especially some of their bigs. And it's just going to help SU out the longer the game goes.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an accumulation thing as well. Like if you just keep driving it and you just keep staying aggressive, good things end up happening. Especially when you're a team with more talent. The more aggressive you are, usually that's the better things go for you. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's gonna be an interesting matchup. I like that Braden Smith's going to have his hands full defensively all night.
No matter who he guards.
Exactly. So like him, whether he's got JJ or which I think it'll be Judah. I think Jock will have JJ because he's a little more physical. But yeah, I mean, you're going to have your hands full, and that's 30 minutes of defending those guys and then running the offense and then also trying to be the guy who gets things going in transition and being one of the best shooters and distributors. Hopefully that kind of is a thing that erosion type thing that wears on him. I think that is an advantage Syracuse does have. I think that kind of counters the bigs a little bit. So
yeah, I would say I would
get those guys on the outside.
Yeah, I would definitely say my 3 keys to this game for Syracuse are probably number 1 is obviously Benny. Benny's back. What happens with Benny? Does he start? Does he come off the bench? Do they try to get him acclimated early? Some post-ups, kind of let him go to work early to get in the flow of things, or do they play their game and kind of let Benny come along in this game? My number 2 is I know this is going to sound crazy because he's probably Syracuse's best player overall, Judah Mintz. What do you see from Judah on both ends of the floor, right? Because these first 2 games, it seems like on offense, he kind of forces a lot of things early in the game. What do you get from Judah offensively? And if they put Judah on Braden Smith, do we see the defensive lapse every now and then from Judah? Because against a guy like that, you can't go for steals and stuff when you're not going to get it, and then just kind of take yourself out of the play.
Well, so Savetsky from Canisius made him pay a couple times.
Yeah. So what do we see from
scoring, but just playing 5-on-4, like he'll make you pay. Yeah, same thing. Yeah. I'm curious about that as well.
And then obviously, my 3rd key to the game we talk about all the time, 3-point shooting. Obviously, if Benny starts, then one of Justin Taylor or Chris Bell won't be starting, and they'll be coming off the bench. But can we figure out our 3-point shooting? Obviously, Justin's been pretty good to start the year. Chris has had very good looks. Obviously, they're going to fall at times, right? But the other guys, can we get a couple threes, 1 or 2 from the guards, and maybe like Benny hops into that and hits a couple? But I think with this team, if Syracuse can hit anywhere between 9 and 10 threes a game, especially with the way that they attack and things like that, it's going to go a long way.
Yeah, I think they'll be in good shape if they hit 9 or 10. I think
you would hope, right?
I think we'll take that for sure. This is a good opportunity for Judah to kind of establish himself again. Again, this is the first. I don't know. I know Canisius is okay, but this is the first solid, legit, reputable opponent for the Orange this year. It'll be interesting to see how they respond, and what happens if Colgate goes up 10-2 early. What happens if you go through one of those 6-7 minute spells that they have each game so far, all 4, honestly, exhibition and games this year where you just don't score, and like the flow kind of just for whatever reason, right? Even though they have so many weapons, it just kind of doesn't work out. Like what happens then? What happens if Judah gets early fouls? What happens if Naheem gets early foul? You know what I mean? So like all those things are we're going to probably learn a lot more whenever you read this, we're going to learn a lot more Tuesday night than we have these last couple of games about who this team is and where they're going is heading into Maui, right? Like we've seen all year this year, right? Like we've seen teams go down to teams they quote unquote should not lose to. Syracuse is not, what's the word? They're not immune to that at all, right? We've seen it ourselves. We've been on the other end of those things. So they're going to play well. And again, they're going to play well. Gone are the days in college basketball in general of you just showing up because you're a quote unquote blue blood, right?
Listen, I will say we saw it tonight.
Yeah.
Penn beat Villanova I think it was at Villanova.
Penn's picked to finish 5th in the Ivy.
So
Ivy or
we
Patriot
saw it tonight. But yeah. So one other thing I will say, I'm gonna pick my X Factor for tomorrow night for Syracuse. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I think the X Factor that takes Syracuse over the top tomorrow night. I think it's gonna be Kyle Cuff. I think you're gonna see. I won't say big minutes from Kyle, but it just seems like every game that he plays, he's kind of asserts himself more and more. We've seen a couple almost highlight plays in the first 4 games of his Syracuse career. I definitely think you'll see a 3-guard lineup at some point tomorrow night, especially if Syracuse can get the bigs into foul trouble and they kind of go a little bit small. But I won't even say small because really, what's Judah? 6'6", 6'5". So, it's just yeah. So I'm gonna say Kyle Cuff. I think he plays huge minutes. I think he gets the team where they need to be defensively, and I think he hits a couple shots offensively. So that's gonna be my X factor for tomorrow night or Tuesday night.
Yeah, mine's definitely Benny. We'll see. I'm just very curious about what that's going to look like for him.
We saw him once, right? We saw him in the first exhibition game.
Yeah.
Well, we saw a couple nice things from Benny, and then we haven't seen him since. So,
yeah, we'll see. We will see. All right, so Syracuse is a 5.5-point favorite in this one. And the over/under is 157.5. I'll start. I think Syracuse covers and wins by 7 or 8. And I think it's under for this one. I can't see it being like
a shootout,
80 to 75, or like even that would be under, right? Like, wait, even 80 to 75.
155.
I don't see it. I know Syracuse has scored a lot. I did think that in the film I watched of Colgate, and I'm going to share it. Like I said, I'll share a video a little bit later. I clipped some things up. I do think that Colgate's defense is decent, and it'll be pestering. They don't let anything middle. They really try and keep you on a sideline. They don't switch at all, really, but they do really extend and help and use the backside. So like your backside guys, when you swing it out of those scramble situations, have to be able to hit shots and make plays. So I think that their defense will cause longer possessions and make things a little bit more difficult for Syracuse. And again, when you're inside, right, it's not a 6'7" dude from Canisius down there. Or from New Hampshire. It's a 6'10", 6'11", 23, 24-year-old. Okay. So like it's a different type of thing. So I'm going with Syracuse wins it by 6 or 7, maybe a little bit more. But I'm going under for my points for sure.
Yeah. Obviously, like you said, if you remember the game from last year, not only did they hit 19 threes, but they were also very physical inside. They kind of took Jesse Edwards right out of that game.
And that's early. Interrupt you, but like that's the difference with Colgate and other these other teams that are like mid majors, right? Like,
yeah, they're gonna abuse you. They
can hurt you in 2 or 3 ways. Like these other teams can't. They can do like Canisius, right? They just didn't have enough like multi-faceted ways to attack you. Hit some tough threes, get some offensive rebounds. Let Steveski do his thing now and then. But you just know that Colgate is a little more well polished. And they're just a lot more kind of good inside and out.
Yeah.
That's what makes them – that's why they win. That's why they've been winning for the last however long.
Yeah. I'm going to go over on the point spread. I think Syracuse wins by, I'm going to say 10 or 11. I think they pull away late. I will say Syracuse fans do not get high or low in this game because – I do think it's going to be close throughout most of the game, and I think Syracuse pulls away late. And I'm definitely going to go under on the over/under. like you said, 155 is a lot for this type of game. I think it's going to be a defensive slugfest. Obviously, Syracuse struggles to hit threes, and I mean Colgate's only played one game, but they only shot 18 of them.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine they're going to come out in their second game and shoot close to 40. It's just I mean, it's just the numbers of it.
Yeah, I think both teams are going to have lulls. I think that might be the key of the game is which team takes advantage of the other team's like 5 or 6 cold minutes.
Yes.
They want which team, kind of uses that to get an edge. I think that'll be a really important kind of turning point. And Colgate's not going to go anywhere. It doesn't matter if Syracuse goes up 12, 15 early. They're not going to just go away quietly into the night. They're just too good.
They have listen. As much as we talk about Judah Mintz in Syracuse, New York, and granted, he probably could have been a first-round draft pick this year if he went to the draft. Braden Smith is now no slouch on the other side of the ball.
He doesn't care. So he's tough, dude.
It's going to be
high Clarks. I'm telling you, it's like they're like reincarnated. Like he's tough, man. He's tough as nails. He had some tough drives. He's not afraid to shoot it. He'll pull in transition. He's a better shooter than he shot last Tuesday or whenever they played. I like him a lot. I'm surprised he's at Colgate. I think he's got a lot of good weapons. I think he's gonna be a really good player for them if he stays there in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I like him. I like him a lot.
I will say Syracuse basketball recruiting notes. Forward Donnie Freeman and guard Elijah Moore have signed officially to Syracuse for next season. When you listen to high school, the guys that cover high school basketball and college basketball analysts and things like that, two of the more underrated guys in the country for next year. Obviously, one's a lights out shooter. Elijah Moore plays with Ian Jackson, who committed to North Carolina. They just beat like one of the top 4 teams in high school basketball by like 20 plus this past weekend. And Elijah Moore had like 30 points and some crazy numbers. And Donnie Freeman is kind of a back to the basket, more of a forward type. I know we kind of talked about him a little bit on our last pod, but they're both coming to Syracuse next year, which is huge for Syracuse recruiting, depending on who's back. I mean, I don't really see many people from this team leaving. Maybe Judah goes to the NBA, but outside of that, and maybe the couple guys that may transfer out, I don't really see many guys from this team leaving. So it could be a very fun year next year as well. But that's just some Syracuse basketball recruiting news. They did both sign, and I mean, listen, after tonight, we head to Maui. I don't know when they leave. I'm sure that'll be announced at some point within the next couple of days. But they do play Monday at 2:30 against Tennessee. Obviously, if you know what college basketball and the SEC, you know Tennessee and the way they play, especially since is it Rick Barnes? Is that Tennessee?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, so I mean they knocked Duke out of the tournament last year, and Duke was probably at the time one of the top 3 teams going into the tournament. They were playing some of their best basketball and things like that. So they knocked Duke out. They knocked Duke out of the tournament, and it was all on the defensive side of the ball, really.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I know I mentioned it earlier, but I think that Tennessee game that Syracuse plays, I think it's definitely going to come down to guard play in that game. We'll obviously talk about that more when we talk Tennessee, but after tonight, guys, or Tuesday night, I will say, whenever you watch this, but it gets real with Colgate, but after that, it gets real. If they beat Tennessee, then they will play the winner of Gonzaga and Purdue, I think, on Tuesday. Yeah. So it doesn't get much easier. And then when they come back from Maui, it really doesn't get much easier after that. So you really don't. I mean, their time to gel as a team kind of already passed with those 4 games. So now we get into the big boy games.
Yep. Yeah. And then, I mean, even that Cornell game is going to be, they're pretty good too. Cornell's probably a tournament team as well. So a lot of good tests coming up. I like that the schedule, like it's got a lot of tests, but I mean, Tennessee's a really tough one, but they probably lose to Tennessee, and Gonzaga's not the Gonzaga of old. They're not as quite strong this year, so I think they'll lose to Purdue. I think Syracuse will lose to Tennessee, then they'll get Gonzaga. So I mean, like Gonzaga, LSU, UVA, Cornell, Georgetown, Oregon. Those are all really good games because they're not games that seem like so out of reach. The only one that I feel is out of reach is that Tennessee game. That's gonna be the toughest game of the schedule. Maybe the entire year. That's the Final Four caliber type team. They're really, really good. So we'll see. I mean, Tennessee beat Tennessee Tech, and then they beat Wisconsin by 10. Beat Wisconsin 80-70. They play Wofford tomorrow, and then they're off until they play Syracuse. Right now, Ken Pom has Tennessee winning by 15, 91% chance for a Tennessee win on that one. So
for their Wofford game,
Wofford's 99%.
Oh, the Syracuse game
is 91. Yeah.
Ooh.
That's low. I think it's the lowest odds for Syracuse all year. Let me look. Well, they have Duke as 7%. Ken Pom does, and at Carolina as 9%. So, I would assume if we were at Tennessee, it'd probably be like 6 or 5%.
Yeah, I mean Tennessee's good. Tennessee's very good.
Yeah. It'd be a great measuring stick. I don't know how good this team is yet. I'm not ready to.
I don't think I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think we'll know until I think the ACC starts. ACC play starts because like you said, I mean even Georgetown lost the other night to oh my God. I watched the end of that game. There was some guy who hit like a huge 3 at the end of that game. But Georgetown ended up losing at home to a team that obviously it was like one of those games where you pay teams to come in and play you.
Holy Cross,
yes. Yeah, but they ended up losing to Holy Cross at home. So, like, obviously, like we said, there's been a lot of upsets this year. So, obviously, Ken Pom has Syracuse a lot lower than they have Tennessee. So, that's going to make sense at 91% and 15 points. So don't just kind of take it with a grain of salt this early in the year. And nobody's saying that SU can't win that game, but it's going to be a very good test for Syracuse no matter what, to see how they play against that type of competition. But even if you lose to Tennessee, even if you could come out in Maui at 2-1, that would be a huge win coming back to Syracuse. So
they're going to win one game because they'll get Chaminade if they lose the first 2.
Yeah,
so they're going to win one game.
Even if you can do that, it's just going to be a huge thing for Syracuse at the end of the day. So, but yeah, it should be fun for sure, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, looking forward to watching this Colgate game, seeing again, like I said, what the coaching adjustments are, and a couple questions that will get answered here soon. About Benny and who starts and who's where and what playing time looks like. So we'll kind of see what that looks like here in a couple of hours. So, all right, you got anything else for us?
I don't. Go
all
Syracuse, right. And let's see what happens.
Another pod in the books. Again, like, subscribe, share, jump in the comments. Help us grow this thing. If you enjoy it, somebody else probably does. Share it their way for a morning commute. I'm going to try and get this one out early in the morning so people can listen to it a little bit earlier. I know people like to kind of knock their stuff out in the morning. And I did a poll on Twitter about when they want to get their pregame stuff. And like 70% people said game day morning. So I got you guys.
We're coming.
Yeah, we got you. All right. So on behalf of Nick Peckham, I'm Braden Shields. Thanks for hanging out with us. And we'll see you post-game Colgate.